Though he still couldn't validate it in the way he
couldn't validate it in the way he would like to,
to
have done.
Let's just talk now in an orderly way about the influence of Russell, because he and Wittgenstein, I suppose, must be the two most influential philosophers in the 20th century, at least in the English-speaking world. Now, I suppose Russell's first great influence was on his immediate contemporaries, and indeed older. It was their influence on him.
It was their influence
that was
on
important.
him, yes. I mean, well, let us put it this way. In the purely logical work in which Russell and Whitehead collaborated, it was, I think, Russell who had the more interesting ideas. I mean, I think the theory of types, the theory of descriptions came from Russell. But when it came to trying to apply that sort of technique to philosophy, which to a certain extent Russell did in Our Knowledge of the External World, for example, in trying to reduce abstract concepts like concepts of points and instants to observational terms, then it was Whitehead who took the lead, and Russell got his ideas from Whitehead, and indeed they quarrelled over this because Russell didn't pay Whitehead sufficient acknowledgement. You'll find the theory developed in two books of Whitehead that came out after the war, The Principles of Natural Knowledge and the Concept of Nature. And Russell at one time was influenced by MacTaggart, who was a disciple of Hegel, and got Russell to be, both Russell and Moore, to be idealists. And Moore, first of all, rebelled against this in the interest of common sense. Moore was a great defender of common sense, and influenced Russell to the extent that he cured Russell of any belief in idealism. So their influence went that way. Also, with respect to ethics, which Russell was never greatly interested, he accepted, like all Bloomsbury, he accepted Moore's Principia Ethica. He believed that good was a non-natural, indefinable concept, and so on. But then Russell had a very big influence on the later, or my generation of philosophers, inasmuch as he convinced us that since science was sovereign in the description of the world, all that philosophy could do was elucidate and analyze. And so Russell can be regarded, I think, as the father of analysis. But here he differs profoundly from Wittgenstein. I don't want to go too deeply into Wittgenstein.
Well, I'd rather you didn't, because we're going to devote the whole of the next program to Wittgenstein.
But one thing that will come out in our next program is that Wittgenstein thought that philosophy was largely a matter of people getting into a muddle. And the business of people like Wittgenstein was to, as in his own famous phrase, show the fly the way out of the fly bottle, to cure people of these muddles. Whereas Russell always thought that philosophical problems had a solution. And that was why he was so exposed to the purely linguistic philosophy that developed, for example, at Oxford after the war under the leadership of Austin, because he thought the mere exploration of language for its own sake, the exploration of the implications of English usage, was trivial. And Russell really thought that there were questions about justification of our beliefs that it was the business of philosophy to answer, and that these questions were answerable. He thought that the answers could be discovered if you worked at it hard enough. Otherwise, he didn't think philosophy was worth doing. And here I agree with him.
Yes, I was going to say, I want to put a personal question to you, because all your life you have acknowledged that you yourself have been enormously influenced by Russell, and you reverence him, and always have. So you can tell us what it's like from the inside, as it were, to have been influenced by Russell. What has its influence been on you?
On me, it's been, first of all, that unlike most of my contemporaries, I still think one should start with what Russell called sense data, what I now prefer to call sense qualia. That is a technical difference, whether you begin with particulars or something more general. But for our present purposes, it comes to the same thing. So that on the whole, I share his certainly the starting point of his views on perception. I also agree with the importance, the primacy he attaches to the theory of knowledge. I am, and I've always been, a thoroughgoing empiricist. I agree with the view that Russell derived from Hume, that there's no necessity other than logical necessity, so that there's no such thing as causal necessity. Causal is just a matter what Hume originally said it was, namely constant conjunction and something purely contingent. I agree with Russell in rejecting any form of theology, or anyhow transcendent theology, and in rejecting metaphysics. And I also, most importantly, agree with Russell that philosophy wouldn't be worth doing unless it posed questions to which we could find the answers. Perhaps not he, perhaps not I, but cleverer persons than I will eventually find the answers.
And all these are examples not just of your agreeing with him, but of him having influence.
Oh, yes.
Are they? All of them, quite directly.
Yes, quite directly, quite directly.
And I think you've even been influenced by him in the way you write, haven't you? That appears
well,
to me
I do regard him as a master of English prose, and I think I'm not in the same class as Russell as a philosopher, but I do think that I do write English reasonably well. And I do think...
And again, partly under his influence.
And again, partly under his influence, yes. I think there is affiliation there, both of ideas and of style, from Hume through Mill to Russell and coming down a stage to me.